She told him she was too damaged, too old, too poor. But his love refused to surrender. The hands of one of Seattle's wealthiest men trembled as he lowered himself to one knee, but not before the society woman his family expected him to propose to. Instead, he knelt on the worn carpet of a cramped living room with water-stained ceilings, facing two frightened children who didn't share his blood. The question he was about to ask would cost him his inheritance, shatter his relationship with his father, and ignite a scandal that would rip through Seattle's elite circles like wildfire. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Would you let me be your father?" The older child, a boy barely 8 years old, glanced toward his younger sister. Then his eyes returned to this stranger, this wealthy man who'd spent the past 3 months making them breakfast, walking them to the bus stop, and staying awake through their nightmares. The same man their mother kept pushing away because she believed she was. "Do you really mean it?" the boy asked, his voice small and fragile. "You won't disappear like our dad did?" That's when the man did something no one who knew him would ever expect. He pulled out his phone and opened a document his attorneys had prepared. Not a prenuptial agreement, an adoption contract already bearing his signature, waiting only for their mother's. "I'm not going anywhere," he said, his voice steady now. "Not ever." But here's the part nobody understood. This wasn't some billionaire's charity project. This wasn't a wealthy man playing hero to a woman in need. 15 years earlier, when he was just a shattered teenager drowning in grief, this woman had been the only light in his darkness. She was 11 years older than him, black while he was white, poor while he had everything money could buy. And the night before his father sent him across the country, he made her a promise everyone dismissed as the foolish words of a "Someday I'll come back, and I'll make you my wife." She had smiled kindly, touched his cheek the way you comfort a dreaming child, and told him he was sweet. But he wasn't a child anymore, and he had just spent 4 years and $38 million finding her again after losing contact. What he discovered when he finally tracked her down shattered him. The woman who once radiated warmth and unshakable strength was now surviving on fumes, abandoned by her husband, raising 2 kids alone in a neighborhood where violence was as common as sunrise, working multiple jobs and still unable to afford her son's inhaler refills. Neighbors whispered cruel things. Children at school mocked her kids for their thrift store shoes. And when he appeared at her door offering help, she slammed it in his face. "Leave, Dashiell," she had said through tears. "Go back to your world. I'm too old for you, too broken, too black, too poor, and I come with children who aren't yours. You deserve someone better." But what she didn't understand was this. He hadn't built a billion-dollar empire for the money. He hadn't spent 15 years working until exhaustion for status or recognition. He did it all for one singular reason: to become a man worthy of the promise he made to her. And now, kneeling before her 2 children in a tiny apartment that smelled of lavender air freshener and struggle, with her standing in the doorway crying because she was terrified to hope again, he was about to ask the question that would rewrite all their futures. But first, you need to understand how a privileged white teenager from Seattle's wealthiest district fell in love with a black woman 11 years his senior, someone his world said he should never even notice. And why his father would rather see him destroyed than married to her. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss how this unfolds. And to our loyal viewers, thank you. Your support means everything. Drop a comment with your thoughts, and like this video if you believe real love transcends age, race, and status. Let's continue. Dashiell Knox was 17 when he learned that all the money in the world can't buy the one thing that truly matters. His mother died on a Thursday, breast cancer, 4 months from diagnosis to burial. His father, Sterling Knox, one of Seattle's most feared commercial developers, didn't shed a single tear. Not in the hospital room, not during the memorial service, not when they lowered her casket into the wet Washington soil. Tears are for people without power, his father told him in the car afterward. We are Knoxes. We don't crumble. But Dashiell was crumbling every single day. The only person who seemed to notice was Nyla Graves. She had been his mother's companion during the final months, a home care aide his mother had insisted on despite his father's objections. Nyla came from South Seattle, worked 2 jobs, and had a presence that made even dying people smile. She was 28, beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with wealth or polish, and she had this laugh, soft and real, that made the unbearable feel just a little more survivable. His mother had loved her. Nyla's got a good soul, his mother had whispered 2 weeks before she passed. Real always recognizes real, baby. Don't forget that. After the funeral, Dashiell's father made an announcement over a silent dinner in their marble-clad dining room. You're going to boarding school, East Coast. You leave in 10 days. Dashiell's fork froze mid-air. I just lost Mom. I want to stay here. Your mother is gone. Staying here won't change that. You need structure, discipline. The Knox name stands for something, and I won't let you tarnish it by being weak. Weak. That word had haunted Dashiell his entire life. Weak because he preferred books to sports. Weak because he cried when their dog died. Weak because he felt things deeply in a family that prized control above all else. The only person who never made him feel weak was Nyla. 3 days before his flight, Dashiell showed up at her apartment in Rainier Valley. The building had chipped paint and a broken intercom. His driver had begged him not to get out. But he had to see her, had to talk to someone who knew his mother as a person, not just a name in an obituary. Nyla opened the door in joggers and an oversized sweater, exhaustion carved into her face. Dashiell, sweetheart, what are you doing here? It's late. My dad's sending me away, he blurted. To Massachusetts. I leave Monday. Her expression softened immediately. Oh, honey, come in. They sat in her small kitchen. She made tea she probably couldn't afford, and Dashiell told her everything. His father's coldness, his fear of leaving, the suffocating feeling that no one cared if he lived or died. Nyla listened the way his mother used to, truly listened. When he finished, she reached across the table and held his hand. You're stronger than you think, Dashiell. Your mama knew that. That's why she wasn't worried about you. I don't feel strong. Nobody does when they're hurting. But strength isn't about not feeling pain. It's about feeling it and choosing to move forward anyway. Something shifted inside Dashiell's chest. He looked at this woman, this beautiful, kind, struggling woman who worked herself to the bone and still found time to comfort a rich kid whose biggest problem was being sent to an expensive school. And he said the words that would alter both their lives forever. I'm going to marry you someday, Nyla, I promise. Her eyes widened. Then she laughed, not mockingly, but the way you laugh when a child says something impossibly sweet.
Oh, Dashiell, you're a sweetheart, but
I'm serious. His voice didn't sound 17 anymore. It sounded like someone who just discovered the only truth in a world full of lies. I know I'm young. I know you think this is just a crush, but I see you, Nyla. I see how good you are, how strong, how you keep going even when life keeps knocking you down. One day, when I'm older, when I've become someone who deserves you, I'm coming back, and I'm going to make you my wife. Nyla's smile faded. She studied him, really looked at him, and saw something that frightened her. He meant it. Dashiell, listen to me. She squeezed his hand. You're about to start a whole new life. You'll meet incredible people, girls from families like yours who understand your world. You're going to build something amazing, and you'll look back on this moment and realize it was just a feeling born from grief. I won't. You will, because I'm not who you think I am. I'm 11 years older than you. I'm black. You're white. I'm barely making rent. Your father would lose his mind. And honestly, baby, I'm not worth the fight. You made my mom's last days bearable. You're the only person who's treated me like I matter since she died. How is that not worth everything? Nyla stood, putting space between them. Her hands trembled. Because you're 17, Dashiell. You don't know what you're saying. Age gaps like ours, racial differences, class divides, they sound romantic until the world crushes you for it. I've seen it destroy people. Have you ever been in love? He asked suddenly. The question startled her. What? Have you ever been in love? Really, truly in love? She hesitated. Once, a long time ago. What happened? He lied. Turned out he was engaged to someone else. Left me broke and broken. She wrapped her arms around herself. That's what love does, Dashiell. It's beautiful until it's not. Then it's just wreckage. Then let me be the one who changes that. Stop. Her voice cracked. Please stop. You're making this so much harder. Dashiell stood and walked over to her. Even though he was 17 and too skinny and probably looked ridiculous, he placed his hands gently on her shoulders and looked her in the eyes. I'm going to Massachusetts. I'm going to study. I'm going to work harder than anyone you've ever met. I'm going to build something that matters. And when I come back, when I'm a man, not a kid, I'm going to find you, and I'm going to prove I meant every word. Tears slid down Nyla's cheeks. You're going to forget me. Never. You're going to fall for someone else. Impossible. Dashiell? I know you don't believe me. I know you think this is grief or hormones or whatever, but I have never been more certain of anything. You, Nyla Graves, are the only real thing I've found in this entire fake world, and I'm not letting go without a fight. She pulled him into a hug. This broken teenage boy and this exhausted woman who'd seen too much too soon stood in her tiny kitchen, holding each other and crying for entirely different reasons. If you still feel this way in 10 years, she whispered, if you come back and haven't found someone better, someone who makes sense, we can talk. But Dashiell, promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't waste your life waiting for something that might never happen. Promise me you'll live, really live. And if you move on and find happiness somewhere else, don't feel guilty. I want that for you. Happiness, even if it's not with me. He pulled back and looked at her one last time, memorizing everything. Her eyes, her face, the faint scent of shea butter and hope. 10 years, he said. I'll see you in 10 years. 3 days later, Dashiell Knox left for the East Coast. And Nyla Graves cried herself to sleep, knowing she'd just let go of the most real thing she'd ever felt. If you've made it this far, it means this story is touching you. Drop a comment below and make sure to subscribe and like if you haven't already. Massachusetts was exactly what Dashiell expected and nothing he wanted. The academy was filled with the sons and daughters of wealth, kids who treated inconvenience like tragedy, a bad grade, a canceled vacation, parents who bought the wrong car. Dashiell sat through classes on economics, philosophy, and entrepreneurship, and all he could think about was Nyla's cramped kitchen and the way she smiled even when the world gave her no reason to. The other students thought he was odd, too quiet, too intense. He didn't party, didn't chase girls, spent weekends in the library researching real estate models, investment strategies, startup frameworks. "Dude, what's wrong with you?" his roommate asked once. "You're rich, good-looking, at one of the best schools in the country. Enjoy it." But Dashiell couldn't. Because every time he thought about enjoying himself, he remembered his promise. And promises, he'd learned from watching his mother die, were the only things that mattered when everything else fell apart. He wrote letters to Nyla that he never sent, drafted emails he deleted before hitting send. What would he even say? "Hi, I'm 18 now and I still want to marry you." She'd think he was delusional. So instead, he worked. By 18, he'd launched his first company from his dorm, a property tech platform that connected landlords with vetted tenants. His father sent seed money, probably just to keep him occupied. Dashiell turned $50,000 into $500,000 in 8 months. By 21, he dropped out and moved to Boston. Started buying distressed properties, renovating them, flipping them. His father was furious. "Knoxes don't work with hammers like common contractors." But Dashiell didn't care about the Knox name anymore. He cared about building something real, something his mother would have been proud of, something that would make Nyla see him as more than just a kid with a crush. The money came fast, almost too fast. By 26, he was worth 8 figures. By 29, he'd expanded into commercial development across 3 states. Other developers called him cold, ruthless, calculating. They didn't know he donated 40% of his profits to programs for single mothers, childhood asthma research, and homelessness prevention. They didn't know he personally ensured his renovations never displaced vulnerable families. They didn't know that every decision he made passed through one filter. Would this make me worthy of her? Women pursued him, gorgeous women, wealthy women. His father constantly pushed daughters of senators and CEOs his way. Dashiell went on exactly 4 dates in 12 years. Each ended the same, polite conversation, the woman leaning in, Dashiell pulling back, apologizing, saying he wasn't ready. Because how could he explain that his heart still belonged to a woman in Seattle who probably didn't even think about him anymore? His therapist, a sharp woman named Dr. Quinlan, finally confronted him when he turned 30. "Dashiell, you've built an empire. You're worth close to $1 billion. By every standard, you're wildly successful. But you're profoundly lonely. When's the last time you let someone in?" "I let people in all the time." "Professionally, yes. Emotionally, you're still that 17-year-old boy. Maybe that's who I'm supposed to be. Or maybe you're using a childhood promise to avoid real intimacy. This woman, Nyla, how old is she now? 41. And you haven't spoken to her in 13 years. 12. Dr. Quinlan leaned forward. Dashiell, it's admirable that you kept a promise, but you can't build your entire life around a fantasy. She's likely remarried, moved on. You're torturing yourself for nothing. She's not a fantasy, Dashiell said quietly. She's real. What his therapist didn't know was that Dashiell had been quietly keeping track of Nyla for years, hiring investigators to confirm she was safe, making anonymous payments when she had hospital bills. He knew she'd married 6 years ago.
He knew she'd had 2 children.
He knew her husband had abandoned her 4 years later. He knew she was struggling, working multiple jobs, probably thinking no one cared. And he knew that in 3 months, when he turned 31, he was flying back to Seattle, not to disrupt her life, but to see her once more, to find out if what he felt at 17 was real, or if everyone was right and he'd been chasing a ghost. His father called him insane. His business partners thought he was having a breakdown. But Dashiell Knox had spent 14 years building a fortune for one reason. And he was finally ready to find out if it had been worth it. Nyla Graves didn't recognize herself anymore. At 39, she looked in the mirror and saw a stranger. Not the hopeful young woman who dreamed of nursing school. Not the bride who believed her husband when he said, "Forever." Not even the exhausted but proud mother who gave birth to 2 beautiful babies. She saw someone just trying to survive one more day. Her husband, Terrence, had left on a Tuesday. No warning. No affair she could point to. He just came home, packed a duffel bag, and said, "I can't do this anymore. The bills, the stress, the struggling. I'm done, Nyla. I'm tired of being broke and stuck." "We have children," she'd said, too shocked to cry yet. "A son and a daughter who need their father. They need a father who can provide. I can't. Maybe if I start fresh somewhere else, I can send money." "Don't you dare walk out." But he did. And the money he promised never came. Not once in 4 years. Now Nyla worked as a home health aide during the day, cleaned office buildings at night, and picked up grocery store shifts on weekends. Her 8-year-old son, Cairo, had asthma that required expensive medications. Her 6-year-old daughter, Brielle, needed glasses they couldn't afford. The rent kept climbing. The car was dying. The power bill was 2 months overdue. And the neighborhood was getting worse. Gunfire at night, dealers on corners, teenagers who eyed her children like prey. But the worst part wasn't the poverty. It was the whispers. "Poor thing. Husband left her for someone younger. I heard she let herself go after the babies. She's raising them alone. No wonder they misbehave. Did you see her taking charity from the church? Embarrassing." Cairo got into fights defending her. Brielle stopped speaking up in class because kids teased her about her worn-out sneakers. And Nyla kept smiling, kept working, kept pretending, until the day Dashiell Knox walked back into her life. She was leaving her morning shift, late to pick up the kids when she saw him. He stood beside a sleek black car, dressed in a tailored coat that probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. He had the kind of presence that made people stop and stare. Tall, built, confident in a way that seemed to radiate power. Then he smiled. That same gentle smile from 14 years ago. "Hi, Nyla." Her world tilted. Dashiell!
I told you I'd come back.
She glanced around, praying none of the neighbors were watching. This was exactly the kind of scene that would fuel months of gossip. Rich white man, poor black single mom. The rumors would write themselves. "What are you doing here?" She tried to sound firm. "It's been 14 years. 12.5, he corrected with a slight grin. But who's counting? "Dashiell, I appreciate you checking in, but I'm late to get my kids. I have to go." "I'll drive you." "No." "Nyla." I said no. She started walking, heart pounding. "Go back to your life. Whoever you think I was, she doesn't exist anymore. I'm almost 40 with 2 kids, 3 jobs, and 100 problems you don't want any part of." He followed her. Not aggressively, just persistently. "I know Terrence left. I know about Cairo's asthma. I know you're working yourself into the ground. And I'm not here to judge. I'm here because—" She spun around. "Because what? Because you made some ridiculous promise when you were 17? Dashiell, I was kind to a grieving kid. That's it. That's all it was." "It was more than that." "No, it wasn't." Her voice cracked. "You need to move on. Go marry someone your age, your race, your class. Someone who doesn't come with baggage and kids and a neighborhood that will judge you the second you step inside it." "I don't care about judgment." "Well, I do. I care that my kids already get bullied. I care that people whisper. I care that being around you will make it 10 times worse for them." Tears filled her eyes. "Please, Dashiell, just go. You being here, being kind, it makes it harder. Because I can't let myself want things I'll never have." He reached into his coat and pulled out a card. "I'm staying at the Fairmont for the next 6 weeks. If you change your mind, or if you need anything at all, call me. No strings." Nyla stared at the card, but didn't take it. "Why?" she whispered. "After all this time, why me?" Dashiell's voice was soft but unshakable. "Because you're the reason I became someone worth knowing, and I never forgot that." He set the card on the wall beside her and walked away. Nyla watched him leave, then picked up the card with trembling fingers and hated how desperately she wanted to use it. Dashiell didn't wait for her to call. The next morning, he showed up at Cairo's school and paid off the entire overdue lunch account. The registrar tried to refuse until he explained he was a family friend. That afternoon, he anonymously cleared her electricity bill. When her apartment's leaking roof went unrepaired by the landlord, Dashiell sent contractors who claimed they were doing work throughout the building. He never asked for credit, never demanded her time. He just quietly, steadily made her life easier. But Nyla noticed. How could she not? "Mom, a man paid our lunch bills today," Cairo said one evening. "The office lady said he was really nice." "Someone fixed the roof," Brielle added. "They said it was free." Nyla closed her eyes. Part of her wanted to be angry. He was overstepping, inserting himself without permission. But another part, the exhausted, drowning part, felt something she hadn't felt in years. Relief. 3 weeks later, Cairo got sick. Really sick. His asthma flared up worse than it ever had. His fever spiked to 103. The ER wanted to admit him overnight. Nyla couldn't afford it. Her insurance had lapsed. She'd already missed work twice that week. The medications alone would cost over $400 she didn't have. She sat in the waiting room, Cairo asleep in her lap, crying silently, when she heard that voice. Nyla. She looked up. Dashiell stood there in jeans and a sweater, looking more like the boy she remembered than the billionaire he'd become. "How did you know I was here?" "I didn't. I was visiting the children's wing upstairs, something I do monthly. Saw your name on the sign-in and asked if you were okay." "We're fine." "You're not." He sat beside her. "How much do you need?" "I don't need your money, Dashiell." "But you need money. There's a difference." Cairo stirred and opened his eyes. He looked at Dashiell with the wary curiosity kids have around strangers. "Who are you?" Cairo's voice was hoarse. "I'm Dashiell. I'm an old friend of your mom's." "Are you rich? You look rich." Dashiell smiled. "I am." "Oh, my dad left because we were too poor. He said it was too hard." The words hung in the air like shattered glass. Nyla started to apologize, but Dashiell spoke first. "Your dad was wrong. Being poor isn't the hard part. Being a coward is. And walking away from your family, that's what cowards do. You, your sister, and your mom, you're not the problem. You're perfect. And any man who can't see that doesn't deserve you." Cairo studied him for a long moment. Then, with the brutal honesty only kids possess, he said, "Dude, you're looking awful. I wish you were my dad instead." Nyla's heart broke. Dashiell's eyes grew glassy. "Can I tell you a secret?" Dashiell leaned in like he was sharing something classified. "I lost my mom when I was around your age, and your mom, she was the person who helped me get through it. She was kind when no one else was. So if I can help you guys now, I'm just paying back something I owe her. Does that make sense?" Cairo nodded. Then, exhausted and feverish, he rested his head on Dashiell's shoulder instead of his mother's. And Nyla watched this billionaire, this man who could have been anywhere in the world, gently rub her son's back and hum softly until Cairo fell asleep. That's when her walls started to crack. Dashiell stayed all night. When the hospital bills came, he handled them before Nyla could protest. When Cairo needed medications, Dashiell made sure the pharmacy had everything ready. When Brielle came to visit and looked scared, Dashiell took her to the cafeteria and let her pick out anything she wanted. He didn't do it for show, didn't post about it, didn't tell anyone. He just showed up, consistently, quietly, powerfully. And by the time the sun rose and Cairo was cleared to go home, Nyla realized something terrifying. She was falling in love with Dashiell Knox. No, that wasn't right. She had never stopped. She'd just convinced herself it was impossible. But watching him carry her sleeping son to the car, seeing how gently he buckled Brielle into her seat, feeling his hand squeeze hers as he promised everything would be okay, impossible was starting to feel a lot like inevitable. The gossip erupted almost immediately. "Did you see Nyla with that white man? I heard he's some billionaire. What's he doing in this neighborhood? She's obviously using him. Gold digger." Those poor kids. First their dad leaves, now she's parading around with rich white men. Nyla heard it all. So did her children. Cairo came home crying because a classmate said his mom was selling herself to rich people. Brielle got teased for wearing new clothes Dashiell had secretly bought when her old ones wore out. It destroyed Nyla. She called Dashiell one night, her voice shaking. "You have to stop." Stop what? The help, the visits, all of it. You're making things worse for my kids. How is helping making things worse? Because people talk, Dashiell. Because in this world, a rich white man spending time with a poor black woman means something ugly. Because my children are suffering for it. Because your father will lose his mind when he finds out. Because that politician's daughter you're supposed to marry will be humiliated. Because none of this makes sense to anyone, including me. Silence. Then, so let me make it make sense. Marry me. Her breath stopped. What did you just say? Marry me, Nyla. Not someday. Not when things get easier. Now. This month. Let me adopt Cairo and Brielle. Let me be their father. Legally, emotionally, completely. Let me show this whole judgmental neighborhood that I'm not playing around. That you and these kids are my family. And anyone who has a problem with it can deal with me. You're out of your mind. I'm in love. There's a difference. Dashiell, your father, disowned me 2 days ago when I told him I wasn't marrying the senator's daughter. His voice hardened. Called me a disgrace. Said I was throwing my future away for some black woman with baggage. I told him the only thing I was throwing away was his approval, and I should have done it years ago. Nyla couldn't breathe. You gave up your family for me. No, I chose my real family. You, Cairo, Brielle, that's my family. The people who see me, who need me, who let me love them even when it's terrifying. My father? He's just a man who shares my DNA. You're the woman who saved my life when I was 17. There's no competition. That night, Dashiell came to her apartment. He didn't bring flowers or champagne. He brought a ring. Not a diamond, a simple gold band with an engraving inside. Promises kept. But he didn't kneel in front of Nyla first. He knelt in front of Cairo and Brielle, who were sitting on the couch watching cartoons in confused silence. Can I ask you guys something really important? His voice was gentle but steady. Both kids turned to him. Would it be okay if I became your dad? Not to replace the one you had, but to be the father you deserve. To take you to school and help with homework, and show up to every game and recital and parent-teacher meeting. To love you completely, forever, no matter what. Cairo looked at his sister. 8-year-old wisdom passing silently between them. You promise you won't leave? Cairo asked. I promise. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Even when people say mean things about us? Brielle's small voice broke through. Especially then. I'll teach you not to care what small people with small minds think. Brielle spoke again, softer now. Will you love Mommy the way she deserves? Because she cries at night when she thinks we're asleep, and I want someone to make her happy again. Dashiell's eyes filled with tears. That's all I want too, sweetheart. That's all I've wanted for 14 years. Both kids nodded, tears streaming down their faces. Then Dashiell turned to Nyla, who was sobbing openly now. I'm not promising perfection. I'm not saying life will be easy. People will judge us. Your neighbors will talk. My father will rage. Society will question everything. But Nyla, I built an empire just to be worthy of you. And these kids, you're beautiful, brilliant, kind kids. They deserve a father who chooses them every single day. Let me be that. Let me be yours. Let me finally keep the promise I made when I was too young to understand what it would cost, but old enough to know what it was worth. Nyla looked at this man, this beautiful, impossible man, who turned a childhood promise into a lifetime commitment.
And she said the word that changed everything.
Yes. They married 3 weeks later in a small chapel. Cairo and Brielle stood beside them, holding rings. Dashiell's father didn't attend. Half the neighborhood boycotted. The senator's family was furious. But none of that mattered. Because love, real love, the kind built on promises kept and choices made and showing up every single day, even when it's hard, doesn't need anyone's approval. It just needs to be true. And this? This was the truest thing either of them had ever known. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that will restore your faith in love, resilience, and the power of keeping your word. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that might change how you see the world. Thanks for watching, and remember, you're stronger than whatever is trying to break you.